Hey guys, good morning. It is Monday, November 9th. This is our class for today. And so I'm just going to tell you, I'm not here because, well, I'm not teaching you live because I'm in the hospital. Not because I got sick, but because this guy right here, when he does stuff like this, sometimes it also results in things like this and things like this. So essentially, he has a cut on his liver, and one gets a cut on your liver, or they call it a liver laceration, in a number of different ways. For Wesley, the jump that you saw pictured, this thing here, taken from a different angle. He was, instead of being where he is now, he was like way up here. And there was a point up there where he was going a little bit too fast. And he became separated from his bike and did something called supermanning, where if you imagine Superman kind of flying over, except that you're doing that parallel to the ground, and his bike is somewhere behind him, and he's about 10 feet in the air. And the problem with human beings supermanning is that we actually can't fly. So when we crash, it's not like a plane lands, but it was kind of like this. And so he landed on his lower right rib cage, which was enough force to produce a cut on his liver. So after all sorts of tests and things like that, I ended up driving him to the pediatric ward at Rogue Regional yesterday, and my wife met him there and spent the night, and now I'm going back to spend the day with him today so that my wife can come home and work. So here we are. Okay, so looking at what we're doing today, we have 3 things on the docket. I want to give you time and no red ink. As a reminder that your no red ink components of a sentence quiz is due on Thursday. I will not be available live during the day, but if you send me an email, I'll be able to check my messages and try to do some grading at various points. If you want me to post a quiz or reset a quiz, please send me an email. I will try to do that so that you can be on time with components of a sentence. So in class, we are starting an exploration of the concept of conflict, and not conflict like 2 armies fighting each other, but just like conflict as the idea of conflict between opposing sources. We're going to take some notes today based on a video and watch a little bit of a video on conflict. But I want to give you the big picture. The reason that we're doing this is that as we move throughout the week, tomorrow we're going to read a short story by Sherman Alexie called Valediction. We're also going to look at other stories that we've already read and examine them through the lens of conflict. When you write your next character letter, which starts at the end of this week and continues into next week, your character letter will also be focused on conflict. So this is our goal. Remember with your character letter that you are writing this on a book that you have that is different from the book that you read your first one, or that you wrote your first one on. So without further ado, let's look at our video. But before we do, I'd like you to take some time to set up your notes. So you're going to go in your notebook to page R14. Okay, page R14. And you're going to title this Types of Conflict. And as you write this down, you may want to pause the video so that you have time to do all of it. But I want to show you what R14 looks like. So we have, you're going to make a T-chart. I did this by folding my page in half and then drawing a line down the middle to make it, on one side, you have external conflict, on the other side, internal conflict. And on external, there are 3 types, which are man versus man versus nature, and man versus society. Okay, so going down to the bottom. So your T-chart should look like this as well. Okay. And again, pause the video if you need to write this down, again, on R14 in your notebook. And then let's take a look at our video. Boom.
One characteristic that literature has in common is that it includes a conflict. While the word may make you think of a fight, in literature, a conflict is a struggle between 2 opposing forces. There are 2 major categories of conflicts: internal and external. The internal conflict is when it is man versus self. This is when the character is having mixed feelings or a difficult choice to make. They are struggling inside or internally to figure out what to do.
Okay, so remember this idea, conflict, a struggle between two opposing forces. So sometimes this is internal, which is within the character, or external, it's not controlled by the character. In this case, man versus self, when a character is really struggling to do something, they're kind of fighting themselves along the way.
For external conflict, there are three types: man versus man versus nature, and man versus society.
So in each of these, man versus man versus nature, man versus society, each of these refer to things that are beyond the individual character's individual control. So it's not just about what's going on for them, but how is it going as they are interacting with the world.
All three of these are considered external because they are outside of the character. Let's try it out. Listen to the following scenarios, and you try to decide which conflict it describes. Lizzie sees her friend cheat on a test, and she must decide if she should confront her.
Okay, so what do you think's going on here? Lizzie sees her friend cheat on a test, and she must decide if she can confront her. Okay, so Lizzie has to decide within herself.
In this case, it is an internal conflict, or man versus self, because poor Lizzie is struggling about what she should do. She must make a choice to address the cheating and create a bigger conflict, or go against what she thinks is right and ignore it. Here's another one. Jim's camping trip went from bad to worse. First, he set up camp on an anthill. Then the clouds rolled in, and then the rain poured.
Okay, so in this one, something's going on. Okay, Jim's camping trip is affected by outside forces. We've got man versus nature, or man versus society. What's your guess?
This is a classic external conflict of man versus nature. There's only so much poor Jim could do against nature. In many cases in literature, man is humbled by the power of nature. Authors can use it to knock down the ego of a prideful character.
And just a reminder, when we talk about man, we're not talking about like boys versus girls. It's like man as man as mankind, which I get is kind of a dated gender term at this point, but we're going to go with it.
Try this one. One day, Tammy wanted to go shopping. She wanted to buy a shirt she thought was super cute, but noticed some girls laughing at her from a few rows over. Instead of being confident in what she liked, Tammy put the shirt back and bought something that was more in style. This external conflict is man versus society. When a character is struggling to decide whether to go with the mainstream culture or break the rules and become an individual, the author is using the man versus society conflict. Last one. Michael knew that Hayden had taken his phone. He had been picking on Michael since the 3rd grade. It had to stop. It was time that Michael stood up to Hayden and asked why he chose to act this way. This is an example of man versus man, since it is a character pitted against another character. Classic examples of this are Odysseus versus the suitors in Homer's The Odyssey, and Dorothy versus the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Being able to recognize the types of conflict the author uses will give you insight into the characters and the author's purpose. While you are reading your short stories or novels for this course, stop whenever there is some sort of clash or conflict and try to determine which one it is.
Okay, so we're going to continue with conflict tomorrow. As you read your book today, and please use the remainder of your ELA time to read your book. So start thinking about, like, what are the conflicts that are taking place within your main character, your protagonist. Like, does that person have some internal conflicts? Are they at war with the world? Are they at war with their parents? Are they at war with friends? And not necessarily at war, but like when they have a struggle, like, what's that about? What's going on? Okay. So use this time to read. I will see you tomorrow.